welcome to Cast Me If You Can.
Ooh, I like that.
The show where we kind of dissect the cinematic landscape.
Sounds good.
But today we're doing things a little differently.
No.
Instead of looking back, we're actually kind of strapping ourselves in for a pre-release cinematic journey.
Okay.
And our destination, the live-action adaptation of How to Train Your Dragon.
Right.
Coming out June 13th, 2025.
That's right.
So consider this your essential pre-flight briefing.
Buckle up.
We've scoured what we know about the original film, production details, fan reactions, all of that.
A lot of excitement surrounding this one.
Yeah, we're going to chart a course to figure out just what this new version might bring.
That's right.
So to kind of set the stage for anyone who might be a little less familiar with the Isle of Berk or just needs a quick refresher on where the story begins.
Yeah.
Can you take us back to the beginning?
Of course we start on the Isle of Berk.
Yeah.
A Viking village that is constantly under dragon attack. I mean, dragons aren't just myths here.
Great.
They are a persistent and very deadly threat.
Yeah.
It's a harsh environment, very tradition-bound society,
No way.
where a Viking's worth is really tied to their strength and their ability to slay dragons.
Interesting. And so within that very intense dragon-filled environment, that's where we first meet our main character, Hiccup Horrendous Haddock III.
Yes.
Now, he's probably not the first person that springs to mind when you think of your typical Viking hero.
Right. He's certainly intelligent,
Right.
inventive,
Yeah.
and he has a very unique way of looking at things.
Yeah.
But physically, he's not exactly the hulking, dragon-slaying type you usually find in Berk.
Right.
And, as the son of Stoic, the vast, formidable chief of the tribe,
Right, yeah.
Hiccup really struggles to find his place in a culture that really just prizes brute force and this unwavering hatred for dragons.
It's interesting because he's an outsider in his own community,
Very much so.
but also even within his own family.
Absolutely.
And so there's this pivotal event that kind of really sets everything in motion.
Yeah.
What happens?
Yeah. Well, during one of the village's routine dragon raids,
Right.
Hiccup manages to use one of his inventions and actually shoot down a night fury.
Whoa.
Now, this is a really significant event because the night fury is like the apex predator of the dragon world.
Right.
The most feared, the least understood,
Right.
almost a mythical creature.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's brought home this incredible trophy
You would think.
and finally proven himself right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What does he do? Well, he finds the injured Night Fury, fully intending to finally gain the respect he craves by, ending its life.
Right.
But when he looks into the dragon's eyes, he sees something unexpected.
Okay.
He doesn't see this savage beast that everyone has, made him out to believe,
Yeah.
but instead fear, vulnerability, and a surprising spark of intelligence.
Oh, wow.
This realization triggers a moment of really profound empathy in him.
Wow.
And against all expectations,
Yeah.
he chooses to set the dragon free.
Amazing.
Yeah, that single act of compassion is really the cornerstone,
Right.
upon which the entire story hinges.
So this act of kindness sparks this central relationship in the story.
It does.
Can you kind of tell me how that unlikely friendship unfolds?
Sure, Hiccup keeps the encounter with the dragon a complete secret,
Right.
but he can't help but seek out the injured Night Fury again.
Okay.
Eventually, he names him Toothless,
I'd love that name.
a very clever nod to the dragon's retractable teeth.
I know.
What's so compelling here is the way that trust and understanding gradually builds between them.
Okay.
I mean, Hiccup, through really careful observation and that knack that he has for invention,
Right.
he figures out how to actually help Toothless, who can no longer fly properly because he's missing a part of his tail fin.
Gotcha.
So it's this very slow, patient process of learning to communicate without words.
I love that. And it leads to some of the most visually stunning moments from the original film.
Oh, absolutely.
Those incredible flight scenes.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, they're not just action set pieces.
No.
They're really like at the heart of this story.
They're this visual representation of the deepening connection between these two seemingly disparate beings.
Yeah.
Hiccup designs and builds this prosthetic tail fin for Toothless.
Oh, wow.
And through trial and error, they learn to fly together
Right.
in these just breathtaking, almost symbiotic aerial ballets.
I love it.
It's just pure magic
Yeah.
when their bond takes wing, so to speak.
So meanwhile, back in the village,
Yeah.
Hiccup's growing understanding of dragons,
Right.
which he's only getting because of his secret interactions with Toothless,
Yeah.
starts to have these unexpected consequences.
It does.
Back in his public life,
Yeah.
what's going on?
Well, he's forced to participate in dragon training,
Yeah.
something that he absolutely dreads.
Right.
Goes against everything his father expects of him.
Right.
But because of his firsthand knowledge,
Yeah.
Hiccup begins to approach the captive dragons not with that ingrained Viking aggression,
Right.
but with curiosity,
Yeah.
a real understanding of their behavior, their needs,
Yeah.
fears.
Okay.
And this totally unconventional approach
Yeah.
leads to him not just surviving the training,
Right.
but actually excelling in it,
Whoa.
much to the bewilderment of his peers.
Yeah.
Astrid, Snotlout, Fishlegs, Roughnut, and Toughnut,
The twins.
and his very skeptical mentor, Gobber.
So we've got this great juxtaposition here
Yeah,
of Hiccup's secret world with Toothless
right.
versus his public life in the village
Exactly.
where he's succeeding
Right. Yeah.
in this dragon-hating environment.
Yeah,
It creates a ton of tension there.
absolutely. It's the core of Hiccup's internal conflict.
Right.
He's living this double life,
Yeah.
hiding this friendship
Right.
that his entire society would consider an act of treason.
Whoa.
And this is all intensified by his desire to finally earn the approval of his father,
Yeah.
a man who embodies everything that Hiccup is not: strength, unwavering tradition, and a really fierce hatred of dragons.
And speaking of interesting characters,
Yeah.
Astrid,
Oh, yes.
who in the beginning is this very competitive Viking girl.
Uh-huh.
She becomes super important
Yeah.
to how this all unfolds.
She does. Well, Astrid is very naturally curious, suspicious.
Okay.
Her suspicion is piqued by Hiccup's sudden and really inexplicable success
Right.
in dragon training.
Yeah.
She is a very skilled warrior herself.
Yeah.
And she can't understand how this seemingly inept boy
Yeah.
is suddenly outperforming everybody.
Right.
So her determination to uncover his secret
Right.
leads her to stumble upon Hiccup and Toothless in their hidden cove.
Oh, no.
And what happens next is another pivotal moment:
Okay.
the unforgettable forbidden friendship flight.
Oh, yeah, I remember this.
It's an experience that completely shatters her deeply ingrained beliefs about dragons.
Right.
She witnesses their intelligence,
Okay.
beauty,
Yeah.
and that undeniable powerful bond
Yeah.
between the boy and the dragon.
I love that.
That flight fundamentally changes her perspective,
Wow.
transforms her from a skeptic into a crucial ally.
I love that. So we've got the foundation.
Yeah.
We've got the friendship.
Right.
We've got the central conflict all set up.
Uh-huh.
What kind of climax are we anticipating for this live action version based on what we know of the original?
Okay, so given how closely the live action seems to be mirroring that first animated film,
Okay.
it's very probable that the climax will revolve around the Vikings' discovery of the dragon's nest.
Okay.
This massive volcanic lair is revealed to be the true source of all the dragon raids on Berk.
Oh, well, so the attacks on Burke aren't just random acts of aggression.
No.
They're driven by something bigger.
They are.
Okay.
And most importantly, they'll likely encounter the reason why these raids are happening.
What is that?
It's the colossal Red Death,
Ooh.
or possibly the Green Death,
Okay.
though the Red Death was the antagonist in the first film.
Right.
This massive alpha dragon essentially forces the smaller dragons to raid Berk and bring it food.
Wow. So Hiccup, who understands the dragon's motivation now
Yes.
and understands the threat they all face,
Right.
he's got to try and convince the village
Yes,
that peaceful coexistence is the only way that
Right.
they're going to survive this.
it is.
He's really risking everything here.
He is going against centuries of ingrained Viking tradition
Right.
and fear.
And fear.
He has to show them that his unconventional methods, his
Yeah.
empathy,
Yeah.
his understanding of dragons are not a weakness,
Yeah.
but in fact their greatest strength.
I love that.
We can probably anticipate some significant resistance here.
Yeah. Especially from...
Especially from the more traditional Vikings,
Well-
and undoubtedly from his father.
Yeah, I was going to say his dad.
It's going to be about proving that humans and dragons can unite against a common enemy.
Right.
And this will likely culminate in this major aerial battle,
Oh, wow.
showcasing the unbreakable bond between Hiccup and Toothless,
Right.
as they face what seem like insurmountable odds.
So how does all this resolve?
Well,
What's the likely outcome for Burke and for Hiccup himself?
the most probable resolution will involve a hard-fought victory for Berk against the Red Death.
Okay.
However, in the original animated film,
Yeah.
this victory comes at a significant cost for Hiccup.
What happens?
He loses part of his leg during that final confrontation.
Oh, wow.
Which is a permanent injury.
Yeah.
That mirrors Toothless's lost tail fin.
Oh, wow. That's powerful.
It really is a powerful symbol of their intertwined destinies.
Yeah.
And the depth of their connection.
Yeah, and that physical sacrifice that he makes really shows his total commitment
It does.
to Toothless and to this new understanding.
It does.
It signifies his complete embrace of this friendship.
It does.
And marks his transformation from this clumsy, ostracized youth into a true hero.
Absolutely.
And he's a hero who redefines what it means to be a hero in his society.
Exactly.
It's not the typical Viking hero.
It's not.
Right. So I think the original film really connected with audiences on an emotional level.
It did.
And its tone was a big part of that. What kind of feel are we anticipating for the live-action version? You know, what's interesting is that they achieved this incredible balance between thrilling action, especially those flight sequences, and genuine emotional depth. And then there was some surprising humor punctuated throughout.
Yeah.
I mean, Toothless himself provides so much physical comedy.
Like a giant winged cat.
I know, he really is.
The supporting characters add a lot of levity as well.
Yeah, I love all the side characters.
Me too.
It's an uplifting and adventurous experience. I think that's why it connected so well.
I think so.
With audiences of all ages. And you know what's great is that Dean DeBlois, who directed the entire original trilogy, is returning.
He is.
So the expectation is that he's going to be aiming for that same kind of balance.
We hope so.
Which is a good sign.
Yeah, a very encouraging sign.
Because it shows that commitment to capturing the original spirit and emotional core.
Absolutely.
So we could probably expect a visually stunning, epic fantasy aesthetic.
Yeah.
And the rugged Viking setting and these awe-inspiring dragons brought to life.
Right.
Hopefully with cutting-edge visual effects.
No, I hope so.
I mean, those flight sequences, they're so iconic.
They are.
And such a key part of the magic of the original.
Right.
How do you think they're going to approach that cinematically in the live action to try and recapture some of that wonder?
Well, to even come close,
right,
dynamic camera work will be crucial.
Yeah, like
sweeping, immersive shots, intimate close-ups to capture those characters' exhilaration, a real visceral sense of speed and freedom.
Right.
They're going to have to find ways to translate the fluidity and the wonder of animation into this live-action context.
I mean, that's the challenge with all live-action adaptations of animation.
It is.
Right, and they're going to have to rely heavily on CGI.
I think so.
Maybe integrate some practical effects where they can.
Yeah.
But, you know, beyond the spectacle and the dragons, what are the themes that give this story its depth and lasting appeal?
At its heart,
Yeah.
How to Train Your Dragon delves into these really powerful themes.
Okay.
The transformative power of understanding,
Right.
empathy,
Yeah.
and overcoming prejudice,
Right.
fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's a story about finding your own unique path.
Right.
And redefining what heroism means.
Yeah.
Even when it challenges societal norms.
And traditions.
And it also illustrates that incredible strength that can be found in forging these unlikely friendships.
Right.
I mean, particularly that bond between Hiccup and Toothless.
Right.
I mean, their relationship is just so powerful.
It is.
And it's kind of the heart of the film.
It is.
And then you can't forget the complex and evolving relationship between Hiccup and his father.
Right. Stoic.
Yeah, I mean, it's a dynamic filled with unspoken love.
Absolutely.
A weight of expectation. A real clash between tradition and progress.
It really is.
Stoic is a man of action.
Yes.
He's got these very ingrained beliefs.
Right.
He really struggles to comprehend his son's gentler, more thoughtful nature.
He does.
And the film charts their journey
as
he slowly starts to recognize his son's unique strength and the validity of his unconventional approach to the world.
It's a beautiful arc.
I think so.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's about the courage it takes to challenge those established norms.
Absolutely.
And be willing to see the world through a different perspective.
From another point of view.
You know, the original animated film?
Yeah.
It was more than just commercially successful.
Right.
It was a critical darling.
It was.
That has to create a lot of pressure for this live action version.
It does.
I mean, 99% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Consistently high score on Metacritic. Those are the kinds of numbers that any filmmaker would aspire to.
Absolutely.
You know, when you're adapting something that's so beloved, critically acclaimed, The bar is really high.
It is.
And the expectations are immense.
From critics and audiences alike.
Yeah, so there's tons of anticipation for the film.
Yeah.
Understandably, some skepticism from fans.
Sure.
What are some of the key aspects that you think critics will be scrutinizing when the live-action version finally comes out?
I think one of the primary areas of focus will be how faithfully the live-action film adapts the source material while also making those adjustments necessary for the new medium.
Yeah.
They'll be looking at what's been changed, what's been retained,
yeah,
and whether those choices serve the story and its impact.
I mean, especially the believability and the emotional expressiveness of the CGI dragon.
Oh, especially Toothless.
I was going to say.
He is so central. Yeah. So much of his personality and his connection with Hiccup is nonverbal.
It really is.
It's in his mannerisms.
It's in those expressions.
Right. The VFX team has a monumental task.
They do.
Making him feel real,
right,
but also emotionally resonant.
It's a high bar.
It is.
You know, I think the casting choices will also be heavily analyzed.
Of course.
Can Mason Thames really capture Hiccup's awkwardness, intelligence, underlying courage?
Yeah.
Will Nico Parker embody Astrid's strength, determination, and empathy?
Yeah, and what about Gerard Butler?
Oh, yeah, I was going to say.
Nick Frost.
How are they going to translate their vocal performances into live action?
That's a great question.
You know, and beyond the visuals, the performances, it's got to recapture that balance between action, heart humor, and a sense of peril.
Absolutely. The original wasn't just visually stunning.
Right.
It had real emotional weight. It's moments of tension and vulnerability.
It did.
They have to recapture that.
They do.
I think the underlying question will be, does this adaptation justify its existence?
Does it offer a fresh perspective?
Right.
A deeper understanding?
Or is it just a cash grab?
Right. And there's definitely a sense of live-action remake fatigue out there.
There is.
Even though this isn't coming from Disney.
Right.
What are some of the pitfalls you see these adaptations often stumbling into?
Well, the phenomenon of the uncanny valley, where characters look almost real, but not quite.
A little creepy.
A little creepy can be a big hurdle.
Right.
Creating unease rather than immersion.
Right. Pacing can be tough, too.
Yes.
What works in animation doesn't always translate.
Exactly.
You run the risk of losing that unique style and the charm of the original.
The charm.
And then you got to overcome the skepticism surrounding these remakes.
With cynicism.
Yeah. So the fan base for How to Train Your Dragon is huge.
Oh, it's huge.
What kind of reactions did you see when this live-action adaptation was announced?
It was really interesting, a real mix.
Yeah, like what?
Of course there was a lot of excitement.
Right.
I mean, these characters and this world mean so much to people.
I know.
But tempered with apprehension.
Understandable.
A kind of collective, please don't mess this up sentiment.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the fear of a beloved story being mishandled, it's palpable.
It is.
What are some of the theories and the hopes and the debates that you're seeing circulating online?
Well, a lot of the discussion centers around how those iconic scenes from the animated film will be translated into live action.
Okay.
People are debating the casting choices.
Yeah.
Comparing the actors to their animated counterparts.
I've seen a lot of that.
A lot of that. And then the design of the dragons.
Ooh, yeah.
Will they aim for photorealism?
Right.
Will they retain some of the stylization?
Yeah, are they going to look like real dragons or more like cartoony dragons?
Yeah, and then there's a real strong hope.
I was going to say
that John Powell score.
Oh, his score is amazing.
It is.
I love that score.
So good.
It's so emotionally resonant.
It is.
It's got to be in there.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. And you mentioned classic quotes and memes from the original.
Yes.
Are you starting to see those come back around?
I am.
What are some of the ones you're seeing?
Lines like, "Gobbers, thank you for summing that up."
Yeah.
I've seen that one. And of course, that endlessly memeable image.
I know.
Of Toothless's big, gummy smile.
It's so good.
It's the best.
It's amazing.
Yeah, there's that sense of nostalgia.
Right.
But also an anticipation.
Right.
For new moments, new quotes.
New memes.
New memes.
For anyone listening who wants to dive deeper into that fan community.
Yeah.
And really get a sense of the excitement and the discussions.
Yeah.
Where should they go?
Well, Reddit's Ratideeds subreddit is extremely active.
I know. I've seen that.
And engaged.
I'm very passionate fan.
Very passionate. And then the How to Train Your Dragon wiki on fandom is this incredibly exhaustive resource for all things HTTYD.
Nice.
And then platforms like Tumblr, Discord, DeviantArt are also home to a lot of dedicated fan communities where people can share their creations, debate details, discuss the film.
Oh, yeah.
In great depth.
And the original films inspired so much fan-created content.
They did.
What do you think the live-action adaptation will do in that regard? Will we see a new wave of creativity?
If the live-action film connects with audiences and captures that magic, we can definitely expect a fresh wave of fan fiction, fan art, cosplay, inspired by these new portrayals and new moments from the film.
The original has a strong cult following.
It does.
A successful live-action version could really solidify that.
Yeah.
And inspire even more creativity.
Absolutely.
So let's get into some of the pre-release trivia and production details that we know so far. The return of Dean DeBlois is huge.
It's huge.
I mean, having the writer and director of the entire trilogy involved in writing, directing, and producing the live action shows real commitment to this story and these characters.
It's not just someone coming in to remake a hit. It's the creator.
It's the creator.
Reinvesting his time and vision into this world.
And the fact that Gerard Butler is reprising his role as Stoic.
I love this.
Creates this great point of continuity.
It does.
Between the animation and the live action.
Yeah.
And the casting of Mason Thames and Nico Parker as Hiccup and Astrid.
Yes.
And Nick Frost as Gobber.
Right.
It's generated a lot of positive buzz.
It has.
People seem to think that they're inspired choices to capture the spirit of the characters.
Right.
There were some production delays.
There were.
What happened?
Well, the initial production schedule was impacted by the 2023 SAG-AFTRA strike. Which caused delays in filming.
Of course.
And as a result, the release date got pushed back.
From that original March 2025 date to June 13th. And where did the filming actually take place?
Principal photography took place in Belfast, Northern Ireland.
Okay.
It's become a popular location for these big fantasy productions. Probably because of the stunning landscapes that can evoke that Viking era.
Dean DeBlois has spoken about the challenges involved in bringing those dragons to life.
Yeah.
Believably. Especially Toothless. With his expressive face.
I mean, he's aware of that high bar set by the animation and how important those expressions are.
They're key
to connecting with the audience. They'll be relying on advanced VFX to achieve a similar level of subtlety and realism.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
And then the question of how much this live action film might draw on Cressida Cowell's original book series.
Okay, so while the first film is the primary source, it's possible that Dean DeBlois might incorporate some elements from the books, which have their own distinct characteristics.
Okay,
well, the books often have a more quirky and sometimes darker sense of humor.
Oh, interesting.
And the dragons are portrayed a little differently.
Interesting.
It'll be interesting to see.
If any of those elements are woven in, the original How to Train Your Dragon trilogy has this incredible legacy.
It does.
In animation. What kind of impact could the live-action version have if it's successful?
Well, the trilogy is widely regarded as one of the best ever made.
It's critically acclaimed.
It is.
Praised for its emotional maturity. Its visuals, character development, mature storytelling.
And a successful live-action adaptation could set a new standard for adapting these films. Elevate the careers of the young actors. Revitalize the franchise. Expand its fan base. It would be a huge success for Universal.
It would, but of course,